There's a technique Eckhart Tolle taught only to a select few, a technique he rarely mentions publicly. And when you discover what it is, you'll understand why so many spiritual masters keep it a secret. 2 minutes. That's all you need. But before I reveal exactly what to do, I need to tell you something that might shock you. Traditional meditation, the kind everyone teaches, it was designed for monks who had 8 hours a day to practice. Not for you, not for your busy life, not for your racing mind. That's why you get frustrated. That's why you sit to meditate and your mind becomes a hurricane. That's why you give up, thinking you're just not cut out for it. You're not doing anything wrong. The method is wrong for you. Imagine your mind as a river. Turbulent river with violent rapids, jagged rocks, murky water. You can't even see the bottom. That's your mind right now, isn't it? Thought after thought, worry after worry, as if there were no end. Everyone tells you to fight the river, to try to stop the rapids, to force the water to be still. But Eckhart discovered something different, something he learned after years of extreme mental suffering. After going through a crisis so deep, it almost completely destroyed him. He discovered you don't need to stop the river. You just need to know where to find the mirror. That mirror exists within all of us. It's always been there. You just didn't know how to access it. Now listen carefully, because what I'm about to explain in the next few minutes will change everything. It will change how you see your mind, how you deal with anxiety, how you experience every moment of your life. Have you ever noticed there's a difference between you and your thoughts? Of course there is. Who is it that observes when you think, "I'm thinking too much"? Who notices when you're nervous? Who knows you're worried? There's something within you that observes. Something that's always calm, always present, always at peace. Ancient mystics called it the silent witness. Neuroscientists today call it metacognitive awareness. Eckhart simply calls it presence. But here's the secret few tell you. This presence isn't something you need to create. It's already there. You just need to learn to connect with it. That takes exactly 2 minutes. Not 2 months, not 2 years, 2 minutes. I know it might seem impossible. I know your skeptical mind is saying this is nonsense. But give me a chance. Give me 2 minutes of your attention and I'll prove to you that it works. Because consider this. What's the difference between someone who's meditated for 20 years and you right now? It's not that they can stop their thoughts. Thoughts still appear for them too. The difference is that they've learned not to identify with them. They've learned to be the observer, not the observed. To be the sky, not the clouds that pass by. And this happens the moment you realize a simple truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes the thoughts. This is the technique. Pay attention. First step, breathe normally. Don't force anything. Just breathe as you always breathe. Second step, notice that you are breathing. Don't change the rhythm. Just notice. Now comes the magical part that Eckhart discovered during his awakening crisis. Third step, notice who is noticing that you are breathing. Slowly. Read that again. Notice who is noticing that you are breathing. This might confuse your mind at first. It will want to turn this into another thought. It will want to analyze, categorize, explain. Let it do that, but don't get lost in it. There's you breathing. There's you noticing you're breathing. There's you noticing that you're noticing. Feel the difference? On the first level, you are the body that breathes. On the second level, you are the mind that observes the body. On the third level, you are something far vaster. You are the pure consciousness that observes even the observing mind. It's like having a camera filming another camera. The second camera sees the first, but there's something even more fundamental. Screen, where both images appear. This third layer. This is the mirror in the middle of the river. This is where you discover you were never the turbulent river. You are always the silent space where the river appears. This is where the peace you seek resides. This is where the calm you desire is. This is where the miracle you've been searching for in 1,000 different techniques happens. When you discover this observer of the observer, something changes instantaneously. River of the mind continues to flow, but you're no longer being swept away by it. You're on the bank, safe, watching the rapids go by. You know what the most incredible part is? The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. You'll be able to access this presence at any moment. In traffic, in a stressful meeting, in an argument with someone you love. You'll discover there's a refuge inside you that no one can touch. A place of silence that is independent of what's happening out there. There's more. There's something Eckhart discovered that will surprise you even more. He realized that when you connect with this presence, with this silent observer, you're not just finding peace, you're finding who you really are. Because all the problems in your life, all the anxieties, all the worries, they exist only in the thinking mind. In the mind that plans, that regrets, that fears the future. But presence has no problems. Presence doesn't worry. Presence simply is. And when you connect with it, even for 2 minutes, you remember something you'd forgotten. You remember that beneath all the agitation, all the drama, all the mental confusion, there's a deep peace that has never been disturbed. This peace doesn't depend on your circumstances. It doesn't depend on your problems being solved. It doesn't depend on anything external. It's always been there. It will always be there. Now I want you to understand something important. This technique isn't just about relaxation. It's not just about feeling better for a few minutes. It's about a fundamental shift in how you experience life. Because when you discover that you can access this presence at any moment, you stop being a victim of your mind. You stop being a slave to your thoughts. You stop living in the anxious or the past that's already gone. And to live in this moment. When you're not projecting fears into the future or carrying pains from the past, life becomes different, more alive, more real, more intense. Colors become bright, flavors more vibrant, relationships deeper. It's as if you've spent your whole life seeing the world through a fogged-up window. Suddenly, glass becomes crystal clear. This isn't a metaphor. It's exactly what happens when you stop getting lost in thought and start living in conscious presence. Eckhart Tolle calls this awakening. Not awakening in a religious or mystical sense, most literal sense possible. Waking up from the dream of the thinking mind and discovering the reality that's always been here. Best part is, this doesn't require any special beliefs. It doesn't require you to become religious or spiritual. It doesn't require you to change anything in your external life. It only requires you to learn how to find the still reflection in the rushing river of your mind. 2 minutes. That's all you need to begin this journey back home. Back to who you truly are. There's something more I need to tell you. Something that will make you understand why this technique is so powerful. Why it works where others have failed. Modern neuroscience has discovered something fascinating about the human brain. It has discovered that there are 2 main neural networks that control our experience of life. One is called the default mode network. This is the network that's active when we're lost in thought, when we're on autopilot, when the mind is ruminating on problems, making plans, worrying. This network includes the medial prefrontal cortex, the posterior cingulate cortex, and the precuneus. In simple terms, these are the areas of the brain. Neuroimaging studies show something even more impressive. People with depression and anxiety have hyperactivity of the default mode network. It's as if the brain gets stuck in a mental hamster wheel, endlessly spinning between past and future. But when you consciously activate the attentional network through the observer technique, default mode network can no longer function. Obsessive thoughts literally have nowhere to form in your brain. When you're lost in anxious thoughts, the attentional network is off. When you're completely present, the default mode network automatically switches off. That's why Eckhart Tolle's technique is so effective. It doesn't try to fight against thoughts. It simply activates the network that makes it impossible to be lost in them. It's like having two buttons in your brain, one for mental suffering, the other for peace. And you can choose which one to press at any moment. The problem is that most people don't know these buttons exist. They spend their whole lives on autopilot, letting the default mode network run everything, creating anxiety, depression, chronic stress. But when you learn the observer technique, you learn to press the right button, and that changes everything. Because consider this, how many problems do you have at this very moment? Not the problems your mind is projecting for tomorrow. Not the problems it's rehashing from the past. The problems that exist now in this second. Probably none, right? At this moment, sitting there reading this, breathing, with your heart beating, you're fine. Problems only exist when your mind travels through time. When it goes to the future to create scenarios of fear. When it goes back to the past to relive old pains. But in the present there is only life happening. And life happening is not a problem. It's simply life. When you connect with the observing presence, you discover this. You discover that beneath all the mental turmoil, there is an unshakable peace. And this discovery changes everything. Now, let me tell you about Emily, a 40-year-old executive who discovered this technique 6 months ago. She was at her wit's end. Anxiety attacks every week, insomnia, sleeping medication, relationships falling apart. Emily wrote to me saying, "I've tried everything. Therapy, medication, yoga, guided meditation. Nothing worked for more than a few days." She told me that she would wake up at 3 in the morning with her heart racing, thinking about work projects. She would spend hours in the bathroom, nauseous with anxiety. She would come home exhausted, but couldn't relax because her mind kept processing, planning, worrying. Her husband said she had become a stranger, always distant, always lost in thought, always tense. Their children started avoiding talking to her because any innocent question became a source of stress. Then she learned the observer technique. First few days, she could access this presence for only a few seconds. Even those seconds were like gusts of fresh air in a suffocating room. Within a week, she could stay in that state for 2 whole minutes. In 2 weeks, the anxiety attacks stopped completely. They didn't diminish. They stopped. In a month, she was sleeping without medication for the first time in 3 years. In 3 months, she said a phrase that gave me chills. "I've discovered that I'm indestructible." Impressed me most, she said afterward. "I realized I always had 2 Emilys inside me. The Emily who suffers, who worries, who is afraid, and the Emily who observes all of that happening. The first Emily continued to have the same thoughts as always, but I stopped being her. I became the second Emily, the one who observes. Not physically indestructible, of course, but psychologically, emotionally. She discovered that there is something within her that no external circumstance can shake. You know why this happened? Because when you connect with the observing presence, you realize something revolutionary. You are not your emotions. You are the one who observes the emotions. Anxiety appears, you observe it appearing. Sadness arrives, you observe it arriving. Anger arises, you observe it arising. And when you are the observer, not the observed, everything changes. The emotions stop controlling you. They become like clouds in the sky of your consciousness. They appear, stay a while, and then go away naturally. You don't need to fight against them. You don't need to suppress them. You don't need to pretend they don't exist. Simply observe. Same tranquility as watching the rain fall outside. But there's more. Something even deeper that happens when you practice this consistently. You begin to realize there's no past and future, only an infinite succession of presents. And each present is an opportunity to choose. Will I identify with the thoughts, or will I remain the observer? Each moment is a door to peace, or a door to suffering. And you hold the key. Eckhart Tolle discovered this dramatically. He recounts spending years immersed in deep depression, waking each morning with a weight on his chest, a nameless anguish, a feeling that something was fundamentally wrong with life. It was like carrying an invisible stone 24 hours a day, a stone made of anxiety, fear, inadequacy. Couldn't relate normally to people, couldn't find pleasure in anything. It was as if there were a glass barrier between him and life. The thoughts were relentless, a never-ending cascade of judgments, worries, analyses. Why am I like this? What's wrong with me? How do other people manage to live normally? One night, at 29, the pain became unbearable. He was alone in his London apartment. The feeling of despair was so intense he thought, I can't stand living with myself anymore. Then something extraordinary happened. Something that changed not only his life, but the modern understanding of consciousness and suffering. He realized, wait, if I can't stand living with myself, then there's me and there's myself. If they are two different things, who am I? Who is this myself I can't stand living with? At that moment, for the first time in his life, he discovered the separation. He discovered that there is the thinking Eckhart Tolle, full of problems and anguish. And there is the observing Eckhart Tolle, eternally at peace. He described what happened next as if a veil had been lifted, as if he had spent his whole life in a dark room and someone had turned on the light. And when he identified with the observer, suffering simply vanished, not gradually, instantaneously, as if a switch had been turned off. Suffering only exists when you identify with thoughts and emotions. You realize that you are the observer, not what is observed. Suffering completely loses its power over you. Now, I know this may seem too simple. Your skeptical mind might be saying, if it were that easy, everyone would have discovered it. Not that it's difficult, it's that it's subtle. It's so obvious that it goes unnoticed. It's like looking for your glasses that are on your head. The observing presence has always been there. Since you were born, since you gained consciousness, it is the most natural thing about you. And the problem is that we have been conditioned to pay attention only to the content of consciousness, thoughts, emotions, sensations. Nobody taught us to pay attention to consciousness itself. It's like we spend our whole lives looking at the movie screen, completely absorbed in the film, and never realizing that there's a screen there. A pristine screen where all the films appear and disappear, but is never affected by any of them. You are the screen. Thoughts and emotions are the film. And when you realize this, really realize this, life becomes a completely different game. Stop for a moment. Feel the air entering and leaving your lungs. Feel your body where it is resting. Listen to the sounds around you. Notice. Who is perceiving all this? Who is aware that you are aware? This is the door. This is the entrance to what Eckhart Tolle calls the now, the conscious present moment. And in the now, there are no problems. There are only situations that require action or acceptance. But problems, in the sense of mental dramas that cause suffering, only exist when the mind travels in time. Imagine that you could always live in the now. Imagine what it would be like to wake up every morning without the anxiety of the day ahead. What it would be like to go to sleep every night without dwelling on the day's mistakes. What it would be like to be completely present in every conversation, truly listening, truly connected. This is not fantasy. It's possible. And you can start now. Because here's the final secret that few tell you. This technique isn't just for meditation. It's to be used in real life, in traffic, at work, in arguments, in moments of pain. Every time you realize you're lost in thought, you have a golden opportunity, an opportunity to come home, to the silent observer. And every time you do this, you strengthen this muscle of presence. Like going to the gym. At first it's difficult, but each repetition makes you stronger. In a few weeks, you'll find that you can access this peace instantly, in any situation, no matter how chaotic. You will discover that you carry within you a refuge that no one can touch, a source of serenity that depends on nothing external. And that is real freedom. Not the freedom to have what you want, the freedom of not needing things to be different from what they are, for you to be at peace. Now, I'm going to give you a practical exercise for the next 7 days. An exercise that will prove to you that this works. Every morning, as soon as you wake up, before you pick up your phone, before you start thinking about the day, practice for 2 minutes. Sit in bed. You don't need a special position. Breathe normally. Don't force the pace. Don't try to breathe deeply. Just breathe as you naturally breathe. First minute, notice that you are breathing. Feel the air entering your nostrils. Feel your lungs expanding. Feel the natural pause between inhalation and exhalation. If the mind fires off thoughts about the day, just note thoughts appearing and return to the breath. Second minute. Now comes the crucial part. Notice who is noticing that you are breathing. Don't try to find an answer with your mind. It's not an intellectual exercise. It's an exercise in recognition, like recognizing a familiar face in a crowd. Every night, before you go to sleep, repeat the same process. But at night, add a question. Who lived this day? Who experienced all these experiences? Let the question echo without seeking a mental answer. During the day, whenever you remember, whenever you realize you're lost in obsessive thoughts, ask the magic question. Who is noticing this thought? Who is feeling this emotion? Don't need to stop what you're doing. It can be in the elevator, in traffic, in the bank line. The question itself acts like a magnet, pulling you back to the observing presence. First few days, you'll only catch glimpses, seconds of clarity, amidst hours of mental turmoil. It's normal. Keep practicing. Within a week, you'll notice changes. Subtle changes at first, but real changes. You'll find yourself reacting less to provocations, worrying less about things you can't control, enjoying more of the small moments of beauty that were always there. But you didn't see them because you were lost in thought. There's something even more important. You'll realize there's a fundamental difference between being alive and being awake to life. Being alive is what you've always done. Eating, sleeping, working, relating, solving problems, seeking pleasures. Being awake to life is perceiving the miraculous nature of each moment. It's feeling the texture of life unfolding. Being present to the extraordinary disguised as the ordinary. And that is the true promise of this technique. Not just less suffering, not just more peace, but more life, more reality, more connection with the incredible mystery of being conscious in a conscious universe. Eckhart Tolle says a phrase that sums it all up. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. And you can only experience reality in the present. In the past, you only have memories. In the future, you only have projections. But life happens now. And in this now, when you are completely present, you discover something surprising. You discover that life is infinitely richer, more colorful, more alive than your mind ever imagined. Because the mind only knows concepts, categories, judgments. But life is far more subtle than any concept, far more mysterious than any category, far more beautiful than any judgment. You escape the prison of thoughts and enter the freedom of presence. You discover you've always been living in black and white. Suddenly, the world explodes in colors you didn't even know existed. This is awakening, not something mystical or supernatural. Simply waking up from the dream of the mind and discovering the reality that has always been here. And all of this starts with 2 minutes. 2 minutes to discover who you really are beneath all the thoughts, all the emotions, all the stories you tell yourself. 2 minutes to find the undisturbed reflection in the rushing river of your mind. 2 minutes to come home, to come back to yourself. Because ultimately, every spiritual search, every therapy, every self-help technique is looking for the same thing. Path back to who you truly are has always been here, always been waiting. Silent, patient, indestructible. Waiting for you to stop looking outside for what has always been inside, waiting for you to discover that the peace you seek isn't at the end of the journey. It's what makes the journey possible. It's what always was. It's what always will be. It's what is now. You just need to remember, and that takes exactly 2 minutes.